Arthur Conan Doyle, The Sign of the Four. Chapter 7. The Episode of the Barrel. The police had brought a cab, and I took Miss Morstan home in it. Like many women, she stayed calm while she could help someone weaker than herself, and I saw that she was cheerful and quiet next to the frightened housekeeper. In the cab, however, she suddenly felt faint, and then she began to cry hard. She had suffered greatly from the events of the night. She later told me that she thought I was cold and distant during that journey. She did not know about the struggle inside me, or how much effort it took for me to control myself. I felt deep sympathy and love for her, just as I had felt when I held her hand in the garden. I felt that many years of normal life could not teach me to understand her kind and brave nature as much as this one strange day had done. But there were two reasons why I said nothing about my feelings. She was weak and nervous, and it would be wrong to speak of love at such a time. Also, she was rich. If Holmes's work was successful, she would become an heiress. Was it right? Was it honorable for a poor army doctor to take advantage of a friendship that had come by chance? Might she think that I was only a common man who wanted her money? I could not risk that such a thought might come into her mind. This Agra treasure stood between us like a wall that we could not cross. It was almost 2 o'clock when we arrived at Mrs. Cecil Forrester's house. The servants had gone to bed hours before, but Mrs. Forrester had stayed awake because she was very interested in the strange message that Miss Morstan had received, and she hoped that she would return soon. She opened the door herself. She was a graceful, middle-aged woman, and I was glad to see how gently she put her arm around Miss Morstan's waist, and how kind and motherly her voice was when she greeted her. It was clear that she was not just a paid helper, but a respected friend. I was introduced to her, and Mrs. Forrester warmly asked me to come in and tell her our story. However, I explained that my task was important, and I promised that I would visit later and tell her about any progress in the case. As we drove away, I looked back for a moment, and I can still see that small group at the door. The two graceful women standing close together, the half-open door, the light in the hall shining through colored glass, the barometer, and the bright stair rods. It was calming to see even this short view of a peaceful English home in the middle of the dark and dangerous events that had taken all our attention. And the more I thought about what had happened, the stranger and darker it seemed. I went over the whole unusual chain of events as the cab moved through the quiet streets lit by gas lamps. There was the first mystery. That was quite clear now. The death of Captain Morstan, the sending of the pearls, the advertisement, the letter. We now understood all these things. But they only led us to a deeper and much more tragic mystery. The Indian treasure, the strange plan found among Morstan's things, the unusual scene when Major Sholto died. The finding of the treasure followed at once by the murder of the man who found it. The very strange details of the crime, the footprints, the unusual weapons, the words on the card, the same as those on Captain Morstan's map. This was truly a maze in which any man, less gifted than my friend, might lose hope of ever finding the answer. Pinchin Lane was a row of poor old brick houses with 2 floors in a low part of Lambeth. I had to knock for quite a long time at number 3 before anyone answered. At last I saw the light of a candle behind the blind, and a face appeared at the upstairs window. "Go away, you drunken vagabond," said the face. "If you make any more noise, I will open the cages and let 43 dogs out on you." "If you let one out, that is exactly what I have come for," I said. "Go away," shouted the voice. "I swear I have a stick in a bag, and I will drop it on your head if you do not leave." "But I want a dog," I cried. "I will not argue," shouted Mr. Sherman. "Now stand back, because when I say 3, I will drop the stick." "Mr. Sherlock Holmes," I began, But these words had a magical effect. The window shut at once, and in less than a minute the door was opened. Mr. Sherman was a tall, thin old man with bent shoulders, a long, thin neck, and blue glasses. "A friend of Mr. Sherlock Holmes is always welcome," he said. "Come in, sir. Stay away from the badger, because it bites." "Ah, naughty, naughty. Do you want to bite the gentleman?" he said to a small animal that pushed its sharp head and red eyes between the bars of its cage. "Do not worry, sir. That is only a slow worm. It has no teeth, so I let it move freely in the room, because it eats the beetles. You must not mind that I was a little rude at first, because children often make fun of me, and many people come here just to knock on my door. What did Mr. Sherlock Holmes want, sir?" "He wanted one of your dogs." "Ah, that would be Toby." "Yes, Toby is the name. Toby lives at number 7 on the left." He walked slowly forward with his candle among the strange animals that lived with him. In the weak, moving light, I could see many shining eyes looking at us from every corner. Even the wooden beams above our heads were full of quiet birds, who slowly moved from one leg to the other when our voices woke them up. Toby turned out to be an ugly, long-haired animal with long hanging ears, half spaniel and half lurcher, brown and white in color, with a slow and clumsy walk. After some hesitation, it accepted a piece of sugar that the old man gave me, and after that, it became friendly. It followed me to the cab and went with me without any trouble. It was exactly 3 o'clock by the palace clock when I arrived again at Pondicherry Lodge. I found that the former prizefighter McMurdo had been arrested as a helper in the crime, and both he and Mr. Sholto had been taken to the police station. 2 policemen were guarding the narrow gate, but they let me pass with the dog when I mentioned the detective's name. Holmes was standing on the doorstep with his hands in his pockets, smoking his pipe. "Ah, you have brought him," he said. "Good dog. Athelney Jones has gone. There has been a lot of activity since you left. He has arrested not only our friend Thaddeus, but also the gatekeeper, the housekeeper, and the Indian servant. We now have the place to ourselves, except for a sergeant upstairs. Leave the dog here and come up." We tied Toby to the table in the hall and went upstairs again. The room was the same as before, except that a sheet now covered the body in the middle. A tired-looking police sergeant was resting in the corner. "Please lend me your lantern, Sergeant," said my friend. "Now tie this piece of card around my neck so that it hangs in front of me. Thank you. Now I must take off my boots and socks. Please carry them downstairs with you, Watson. I am going to do a little climbing. And put my handkerchief into the creosote. That is enough. Now come up into the attic with me for a moment." We climbed up through the hole. Holmes shone his light again on the footprints in the dust. "I want you to look carefully at these footprints," he said. "Do you notice anything special about them?" "They belong," I said, "to a child or a small woman. Not only their size. Do you see anything else? They look like normal footprints." "Not at all. Look here. This is the print of a right foot in the dust. Now I will make one with my bare foot next to it. What is the main difference? Your toes are all close together. The other print shows each toe clearly separated." "Exactly. That is the important point. Remember that. Now please go to that small window and smell the edge of the wood. I will stay here because I have this handkerchief in my hand." I did what he said, and I immediately noticed a strong smell like tar. That is where he put his foot when he went out. If you can follow this smell, I think Toby will have no problem. Now go downstairs, release the dog, and watch for Blondin. When I went outside into the garden, Sherlock Holmes was already on the roof, and I could see him like a large glowing insect moving slowly along the top. I lost sight of him behind a group of chimneys, but soon he appeared again, and then disappeared once more on the other side. When I walked around to that side, I found him sitting at the edge of the roof in one corner. "That is you, Watson?" he called. "Yes." "This is the place. What is that black thing down there?" "A water barrel." "Is there a lid on it?" "Yes." "Do you see a ladder?" "No."
Confound that man! It is a very dangerous place. I should be able to go down where he climbed up. The water pipe feels quite strong. I will try it. There was a sound of feet moving, and the lantern slowly came down along the wall. Then he jumped lightly onto the barrel, and from there down to the ground. It was easy to follow him, he said, as he put on his socks and boots. Tiles were loose all the way, and in his hurry he dropped this. It confirms my idea, as you doctors say. The object he showed me was a small pouch made of colored grass, with some cheap beads around it. It was similar in shape and size to a cigarette case. Inside there were several dark wooden spikes, sharp at one end and round at the other, like the one that had hit Bartholomew Sholto. "They are very dangerous," he said.
"Be careful not to touch the sharp end. I am glad to have them, because he probably does not have any more. That means there is less danger for us. I would rather face a rifle bullet myself. Are you ready for a 6-mile walk, Watson?" "Yes," I answered. "Your leg is strong enough?" "Oh, yes." "Here you are, Toby. Good dog. Smell it, Toby, smell it." He held the creosote handkerchief under the dog's nose. The animal stood with its legs apart and tilted its head in a funny way, like an expert smelling a fine wine. Holmes then threw the handkerchief away, tied a strong rope to the dog's collar, and led him to the bottom of the water barrel. At once, the dog began to make loud, excited sounds, and with its nose to the ground and its tail in the air, it ran along the trail quickly, pulling on the rope and forcing us to move fast behind it.
The sky in the east was slowly becoming light, and we could now see some distance in the cold gray morning. The large, heavy house, with its dark, empty windows and high walls, stood behind us, looking sad and lonely. We walked across the grounds, moving between the holes and trenches that covered the land. The whole place, with its piles of dirt and poor, weak plants, looked damaged and unlucky, matching the dark tragedy that had happened there. When we reached the wall, Toby ran along it, making soft sounds of excitement under its shadow, and finally stopped in a corner behind a young beech tree. Where the two walls met, some bricks were loose, and the spaces between them were worn smooth at the bottom, as if they had often been used as steps. Holmes climbed up, and after taking the dog from me, he dropped it down on the other side. "There is the mark of the wooden-legged man's hand," he said, as I climbed up next to him. "You can see a small stain of blood on the white wall. It is very lucky that it has not rained heavily since yesterday. The smell will stay on the road, even though they have had a start of 28 hours. I must admit that I had my doubts when I thought about all the traffic that had passed along the London road during that time. But my fears soon disappeared. Toby never stopped or changed direction, but continued in his strange, rolling walk. It was clear that the strong smell of creosote was much stronger than all the other smells around. "Do not think," said Holmes, "that my success in this case depends only on the chance that one of these men stepped in the chemical. I now have knowledge that would allow me to follow them in many different ways. However, this is the easiest way, and since luck has given it to us, it would be wrong not to use it. Still, it has stopped the case from becoming the interesting intellectual problem that it once promised to be. There could have been some credit in solving it, but this clue is too obvious." "There is still plenty of credit," I said. "I assure you, Holmes, that I am even more amazed by how you solved this case than I was in the Jefferson Hope murder.
This case seems deeper and more mysterious to me. For example, how could you describe the man with the wooden leg with such confidence?
My dear boy, it was very simple. I do not want to make it sound dramatic. Everything is clear and open. Two officers who guard prisoners learn an important secret about hidden treasure. An Englishman named Jonathan Small draws a map for them. You remember that we saw his name on the map that Captain Morstan had. He signed it for himself and his partners, the sign of the four, as he called it in a rather dramatic way. With the help of this map, the officers, or one of them, find the treasure and bring it to England, but they leave some condition unfulfilled. Now think about this. Why did Jonathan Small not take the treasure himself? The answer is simple. The map is from a time when Morstan was working closely with prisoners. Jonathan Small did not take the treasure because he and his partners were prisoners and could not escape. But that is only a guess, I said.
It is more than a guess. It is the only explanation that fits the facts. Now let us see how it continues. Major Sholto lives peacefully for some years, happy with his treasure. Then he receives a letter from India that frightens him greatly. What could that be? A letter to tell him that the men he had treated badly were now free, or that they had escaped. That is more likely, because he would have known how long their prison sentence was. It would not surprise him. So what does he do? He protects himself against a man with a wooden leg, a white man, notice that, because he mistakes another white man for him and even shoots at him. Now, only one white man's name is on the map. The others are Indians or Muslims. There is no other white man. So we can say with confidence that the man with the wooden leg is Jonathan Small. Does this reasoning seem wrong to you? No, it is clear and logical. Good. Now let us imagine that we are Jonathan Small. Let us look at the situation from his point of view. He comes to England with two goals: to get back what he believes is his, and to take revenge on the man who wronged him. He finds out where Sholto lives, and he probably makes contact with someone inside the house. There is that servant, Lal Rao, whom we have not seen. Mrs. Burnstone does not speak well about him. However, Small cannot discover where the treasure is hidden, because no one knows except the Major and one loyal servant who has already died. Then, suddenly Small learns that the Major is dying. Afraid that the secret of the treasure will die with him, he takes a big risk, passes the guards, reaches the window of the dying man, and is only stopped from entering because the two sons are there. Still full of anger against the dead man, he comes back that night, searches his private papers hoping to find some note about the treasure, and finally leaves a sign of his visit in the short message on the card. He had probably planned before that if he killed the Major, he would leave such a message on the body to show that it was not an ordinary murder, but, from the point of view of the four partners, something like an act of justice. Strange and unusual ideas like this are quite common in crime, and they often give useful clues about the criminal. Do you understand all this? Yes, very clearly. So what could Jonathan Small do next? He could only continue to watch secretly how people tried to find the treasure. Perhaps he left England and returned from time to time. Then the hidden room is discovered, and he learns about it immediately. Again, we can see that he must have someone helping him inside the house. Jonathan, with his wooden leg, cannot reach the high room of Bartholomew Sholto. But he brings with him a very unusual partner who can solve this problem. However, this partner steps into the creosote with his bare foot, and that is why we have Toby, and why a tired officer with an injured leg must now walk 6 miles. But it was the partner, not Jonathan, who committed the crime. Exactly. And Jonathan was not pleased about it, if we judge by how he walked angrily around the room. He had no hate for Bartholomew Sholto. and he would have preferred to tie him up and keep him quiet. He did not want to risk being caught and executed. But it could not be avoided. The wild nature of his companion came out, and the poison did its work. So Jonathan Small left his message, lowered the treasure chest to the ground, and then climbed down after it. That is the chain of events as I understand it. As for his appearance, he must be middle-aged, and his skin must be dark from spending time in a hot place like the Andaman Islands. His height can be calculated from the length of his steps, and we know that he had a beard. His hairiness was the thing that Thaddeus Sholto noticed most when he saw him at the window. I do not think there is anything more. And the companion? Well, there is no great mystery there. You will soon know everything. How fresh the morning air is. Look at that small cloud. It floats like a pink feather from a huge flamingo. Now the red edge of the sun rises above the clouds of London. It shines on many people, but I think on none who have a stranger task than we do. How small we feel, with our little goals and efforts, when we see the great forces of nature. Have you read much of Jean-Paul? A little. I came to him through Carlyle. That is like following a stream back to the lake it comes from. He makes a strange but deep remark. He says that the best proof of a man's true greatness is that he understands how small he is. This shows a power to compare and to understand, which is itself a sign of greatness. There is much to think about in Richter. You do not have a pistol, do you? I have my stick. It is possible that we may need something like that if we find their hiding place. I will leave Jonathan to you, but if the other one becomes dangerous, I will shoot him. As he spoke, he took out his revolver, put bullets into 2 chambers, and then placed it back into the right pocket of his jacket. During this time, we had been following Toby along quiet roads with houses and gardens that led toward the city. But now we began to enter streets that were full of people. Workers and dockmen were already awake, and untidy women were opening shutters and cleaning the steps of their houses. At the corner pubs, business was just starting, and rough-looking men came out, wiping their beards after their morning drink. Strange dogs came up and looked at us with curiosity as we passed, but our excellent Toby did not look to either side. He continued forward with his nose to the ground, sometimes making an excited sound that showed he was following a strong scent. We had passed through Streatham, Brixton, and Camberwell, and now we were in Kennington Lane, after moving through small streets to the east of the Oval. The men we were following had taken a very strange zigzag route, probably to avoid being seen. They had not used the main road when a small parallel street was available. At the end of Kennington Lane, they turned left through Bond Street and Miles Street. When Miles Street became Knight's Place, Toby stopped moving forward and began to run back and forth, with one ear up and the other down, looking very unsure. Then he walked in circles, sometimes looking up at us as if he wanted help. "What on earth is wrong with the dog?" said Holmes angrily. "They surely did not take a cab or fly away in a balloon." "Perhaps they stayed here for some time," I suggested. "Ah, it is all right. He is moving again," said my friend with relief. And indeed, he was moving again. After smelling around once more, he suddenly decided what to do and ran forward with more energy and determination than before. The smell seemed much stronger now, because he did not even need to keep his nose on the ground. He pulled hard on the rope and tried to run. I could see from the look in Holmes' eyes that he believed we were close to the end. We now went along 9 Elms until we reached Broderick and Nelson's large wood yard, just past the White Eagle Tavern. Here the dog, full of excitement, turned through a side gate into the yard, where workers were already busy cutting wood. The dog ran through sawdust and wood pieces, down a narrow path, around a corner, between 2 piles of wood, and finally, with a loud, happy sound, jumped onto a large barrel that still stood on the cart that had brought it there. With its tongue hanging out and its eyes half closed, Toby stood on the barrel, looking at us as if waiting for praise. The sides of the barrel and the wheels of the cart were covered with a dark liquid, and the air was full of the strong smell of creosote. Sherlock Holmes and I looked at each other in surprise, and then we both suddenly began to laugh uncontrollably.